Welcome back to the deep dive. We're recording this on January 22nd, 2026.
Yep.
And honestly, to say the last few days have been intense, it's just, I mean, that's the understatement of the decade, right? The dust is just barely settling in Davos.
Oh, it has been an absolute whirlwind. I've been looking through this, this stack of cables and transcripts we have, and it feels like we've seen a massive shift in geopolitics in just, under a week?
Exactly. And we need to address the elephant in the room immediately. For years, the headline, "Trump wants to buy Greenland," was, well, it was treated like a meme.
Right, a joke. Something for the late-night hosts.
A total joke from the first term. But as of this morning, looking at this new Greenland framework that was just signed, we have to throw the fantasy label right out the window. This got very real.
Very fast. And it's crucial for everyone to understand this wasn't just a real estate deal gone wrong or, a whim.
No.
This Greenland saga, it morphed into a high-stakes standoff. We're talking NATO, massive economic tariffs, a whole new national security framework.
Which the administration is officially calling the Donroe Doctrine.
Right. A clear play on the Monroe Doctrine from, 1823.
Let's pause there for a second, because for anyone listening who maybe vaguely remembers high school history, the Monroe Doctrine was about telling Europe to stay out of the Americas. How is this new Donroe Doctrine different?
So the original was defensive, like you said, preventing colonization. The Donroe Doctrine, based on the policy papers we've seen this week, is much more proactive.
Assertive.
Very assertive. It focuses on the Western Hemisphere not just as a zone of influence, but as a fortress. The strategy basically says we aren't just protecting this hemisphere, we are consolidating total control over it.
And the sources we have, including the full transcript of the president's speech, they suggest under this doctrine, Greenland isn't just an island anymore.
No, it's been designated as the northern frontier.
So that's our mission today. We are going to unpack this. We're not just doing headlines. We're going deep into the strategic reasons, the psychology behind this whole ownership versus leasing thing, and the very real economic threats that force this deal.
And we absolutely have to talk about the Golden Dome.
Oh, we are definitely getting to the Golden Dome. That part just blew my mind. But let's start with geography. Why Greenland? I mean, you look at a map, it's vast, it's icy. Population of 57,000 people. Why did this suddenly become the center of the universe?
It really comes down to a concept the president laid out very clearly: geography as destiny.
Okay.
If you look at the transcripts, Trump was very specific. He described Greenland as being, and this is a quote, right smack in the middle of the U.S., Russia, and China.
Right smack in the middle.
Yeah.
It's a very colloquial way to put it, but is he right?
Strategically, he is absolutely right. If you look at a polar projection map, so looking down on the Earth from the top.
Right, not the usual Mercator projection.
No, exactly. Greenland is the critical stepping stone. In an era of hypersonic missiles and space-based threats, proximity is everything.
Okay, let's define that term because it's all over these documents. Hypersonic missiles. We're talking weapons that travel at 5 times the speed of sound, minimum.
At least. And they're maneuverable. That's the key.
Yeah.
Old ballistic missiles followed a predictable arc. Hypersonics can change course mid-flight.
So they're unpredictable.
Very. And the sources call Greenland the northern frontier, because if a threat comes over the North Pole from, say, Russia or China, Greenland is the first line of sight. The argument is, if the U.S. doesn't control it, our adversaries will.
And this brings us to his justification regarding Denmark. He wasn't just saying, I want it. He was framing it as Denmark can't keep it secure.
That is the absolute core of the argument. He explicitly said Denmark, wonderful ally, wonderful people, but they simply lack the GDP and the military to secure a territory 3 times the size of Texas against a peer adversary. He even claimed they spent less than 1% of what they promised on its defense.
So the pitch is, you can't afford the insurance on this house, so I need to buy it to protect the whole neighborhood.
Precisely. And that supposed lack of security is what justifies the Golden Dome.
This sounds like something out of science fiction, but the budget numbers in these documents are staggering. Walk us through it.
It is a massive undertaking. We are talking a multi-layered missile defense shield. The estimated cost we're seeing in the sources is over $175 billion.
$175 billion. That's bigger than the entire GDP of a lot of countries.
Easily. And the vision is total coverage. Trump described it in his speech as the greatest Golden Dome ever built.
So it's not just about shooting down missiles.
It's more. The specs suggest directed energy weapons, advanced radar. The idea is that this shield, based on Greenland, Protects not just the U.S., but Canada as well.
I did notice he threw a little jab at Canada in that speech about that.
He did.
Yeah.
So they get a lot of freebies from U.S. defense. But the logic holds. You build a shield on the northern frontier. You cover everything south of it.
Okay, so I get the military logic. We need a shield. Greenland is the best spot. But here's where I get stuck. The U.S. already has access. We have Thule Air Base, the 1951 Defense Treaty. We're there. So why did this become a crisis about ownership? Why did he need the title deed?
And this is where we have to pivot from geopolitics to psychology. This is the psychology of the Donroe Doctrine.
The difference between being a tenant and being a landlord.
Exactly. In that Davos speech, he made this very specific argument. He asked, psychologically, who the hell wants to defend a license agreement?
That is such a specific, almost corporate way to frame national defense.
It is. But it reveals everything about how he views commitment. He's arguing that soldiers and the American public, they won't fight and die for a lease.
Right, for a piece of paper.
Or a license agreement the way they would for sovereign U.S. soil. He sees a lease as flimsy, legally and psychologically. It can be revoked. It can be challenged. Sovereign territory is absolute.
So he thinks a lease signals weakness to China or Russia?
Precisely. He believes a peer adversary looks at that lease and says, we can just pressure the landlord Denmark to kick the tenant out. But if the U.S. owns it, that pressure point vanishes.
He called a lease legally not defensible.
He did. And he reached back into history to make his point. He brought up World War II over and over again.
Reminding everyone that Denmark fell to Nazi Germany in just, what was it?
6 hours.
6 hours.
One of the fastest capitulations of the war. His point was, when the chips were down, Denmark couldn't hold it. The U.S. had to step in as a trustee to keep Germany out.
And he actually called the decision to return Greenland to Denmark after the war a stupid strategic error.
Yes. So in his mind, we saved it, we gave it back, and that was a mistake we now need to correct.
But there's another layer to this, the psychology of ownership. And it's maybe the most fascinating part because it connects the geopolitical to the deeply personal.
You're talking about the Nobel Prize text message?
I am. We have a source here detailing a private text from Trump to the Norwegian Prime Minister, Jonas Gahr Støre. Now, I know Norway doesn't award the prize, a committee does.
But that detail didn't seem to matter much in the exchange.
Not at all. And this text, it just lays bare the shift in mindset.
It really does.
So the context is the Norwegian PM texts Trump asking to de-escalate the Greenland tensions. And Trump replies, and I'm reading from the source, considering your country decided not to give me the Nobel Peace Prize for having stopped 8 wars pls, I no longer feel an obligation to think purely of peace.
Wow. That's a staggering thing to say in a diplomatic text. It's basically, you didn't reward my peaceful behavior, so now you get the other guy.
He then says in the same message, the world is not secure unless we have complete and total control of Greenland. He directly linked a personal grievance, this Nobel snub, to a shift away from peace towards raw national interests.
And that's the Donroe Doctrine in a nutshell. It's transactional. I didn't get my recognition for peace, so now I'm securing assets.
Which brings us to the tactics. Because he didn't just ask nicely.
No, he went with what he called the hard way.
Maximum pressure.
A total maximum pressure campaign leading up to Davos. And it wasn't just rhetoric, it was, well, it was economic warfare.
It really was. The sources detail a specific threat, a 10% tariff on 8 European nations, Denmark, France, Germany.
And that was just the starting point. It was set to escalate to 25% on June 1st if a deal wasn't reached.
Let's be clear what that means. A 25% tariff on European goods that would devastate the German auto industry, French luxury goods. He was holding the European economy hostage for an island.
He was leveraging the U.S. consumer market against European territorial integrity.
Yeah.
At first, he refused to rule out using force, kept saying he might have to do it the hard way.
You can imagine the panic in NATO. We saw cables. European leaders were genuinely questioning if Article 5 would even hold.
It was an existential crisis for the alliance.
There was that moment in the Davos speech that just illustrates his style so perfectly. He told that story about Switzerland while being in Switzerland.
That watch story.
The watch story. He's on stage talking about threatening the Swiss with tariffs over a trade deficit on watches. He said they told him, we are a small country, you cannot do this. And his response, he bumped the tariff from 30 to 39%.
And then all hell really broke out, I think were his exact words.
It just shows he treats every negotiation, whether it's for luxury watches or a strategic island, as a leverage game. You say no, the price goes up.
But then we get the pivot. January 21st, the speech itself. After weeks of ambiguity where people honestly feared an invasion, He makes what he called the biggest statement.
Which was?
I won't use force.
Wow.
He admitted the U.S. could be unstoppable if it used excessive strength, so he reminded them he could do it. But he explicitly took invasion off the table.
I imagine a collective sigh of relief across Europe that probably registered on seismographs.
Huge. But notice the nuance. He took military force off the table.
Mm-hmm.
But he left the economic threat hanging right there. He said, you can say yes, or you can say no, and we will remember.
We will remember. Ominous. Okay, but I want to shift gears for a second. We've talked missiles, psychology, tariffs. Is that it, though? Is Greenland just a launch pad for the Golden Dome? Because one of our sources mentioned something that sounds more Silicon Valley than Pentagon.
Right. You have to look past the defense rhetoric. There's a massive economic and technological angle here.
The libertarian techno-city.
It sounds wild, but our sources show significant private sector interest. We're talking tech billionaires. Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg, Mark Andreessen.
Why Greenland? Is it just for cooling data centers?
That's part of it, sure. But it's really about resources and regulation. First, Greenland has the world's 8th largest reserves of rare earth
The
minerals.
stuff you need for the AI arms race.
Exactly. You can't build advanced chips, batteries, or guidance systems without them. And right now, China dominates that whole supply chain. So this is about breaking that monopoly.
But the vision goes beyond just mining, right? The sources mention a crypto state.
A crypto state, yes.
Yeah.
The vision outlined by some of these private advisors is to turn parts of Greenland into a zone free from legacy government constraints.
So, no traditional taxes, no heavy regulations.
All run on blockchain,
Mm-hmm.
a libertarian utopia on the ice. And this aligns perfectly with what Trump called the Genius Act for crypto in his speech. He sees it as a way to beat China in financial innovation.
It's a convergence of interests. The military gets the fortress, the tech sector gets the laboratory.
Exactly. So you have the threat, the vision, the pressure. How did it end? Because we're sitting here on January 22nd, and Greenland is still Danish.
Right, the flag hasn't changed. Who blinked?
It wasn't so much blinking as it was brokering. The key figure here seems to be NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte.
Ah, Root, a pragmatic operator.
Very. He brokered what's now being called the Greenland Framework.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at the text, it's a classic example of the Donroe Doctrine in practice.
Okay, what are the details? Who gave what?
First, the U.S. dropped the demand for right, title, and ownership. Danish sovereignty is respected. Greenland is still part of the Kingdom of Denmark.
So Trump didn't get his real estate deal? He didn't get the title deed?
Not on paper. But here's the strategic win. In exchange, that 1951 defense agreement is being massively updated. The U.S. gets the right to establish new defense areas, position the Golden Dome interceptors, and drastically increase its military presence.
So he got the function of ownership without the administration of it.
That's it. He gets to put the hardware there, he gets to secure the minerals, but he doesn't have to pay for the schools or the hospitals.
And his spin on this is that it's an infinite deal.
That's from his Truth Social post, an infinite deal that achieves the goals forever at very little cost. He validated his aggressive opening bid to make this huge military expansion look like a reasonable compromise.
It's the door-in-the-face technique on a global scale. Ask to buy the country, so when you settle for turning it into a fortress, everyone breathes a sigh of relief.
That's it. And Mark Rutte's role is fascinating. He claimed in an interview that the question of who controls Greenland did not come up in the final meeting.
Wait, really? After weeks of this, they just didn't mention it.
That is diplomatic speak at its finest, isn't it? Obviously, it was the only thing in the room, but by not discussing it, everyone saves face. Trump gets his dome, Denmark keeps its map, NATO survives.
So let's zoom out. What's the so what here? We started with a Nobel Prize text, ended with a military foothold in the Arctic.
The so what is huge. The Donroe Doctrine has proven that this administration is willing to treat traditional allies like business rivals to secure what it calls the northern frontier.
The line between friend and competitor is getting very blurry.
Very blurry. The security guarantee is still there. I mean, the Golden Dome protects Europe too. But the price of admission is total compliance with U.S. strategic needs. It redefines the alliance.
And it sets a precedent. If you can threaten tariffs on Germany to get a missile base in Greenland, what else can you get?
That's the question keeping diplomats awake. The toolkit has been validated.
Which leads me to a final thought, something that was just a blip but feels really relevant now. In the same press conferences, Trump made a comment about the Panama Canal.
Oh yeah, the China is operating it comment.
Right. He refused to rule out using force there, claiming, we gave it to Panama, we didn't give it to China.
It's the same logic, isn't it?
It's exact same logic. Geography, strategic choke points, a rival power. Geography is destiny. If the Greenland saga was the opening move of the Donroe Doctrine, is Panama the next deal on the table?
If the pattern holds, I wouldn't bet against it. The Western Hemisphere is being locked down.
Something to mull over. We'll be watching the wires. Thanks for diving in with us today.
Always a pleasure.
See you next time.